So let's dive into a really fascinating puzzle at the heart of our economy. What if the very thing that makes the market so incredibly useful is also what makes it so destructive?
Yeah, that's the big question here, right? We count on the market every single day to coordinate, well, basically everything. But what if that same system is completely blind to the very things it needs to keep going? That's the paradox we're gonna unpack. Okay, so to get our heads around this, we first have to understand what the market's fundamental job even is. And it all comes down to taming complexity.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The world is an unbelievably complex place. The amount of information just swirling around us in our social and ecological environments, it's totally overwhelming. There's no way one person or even a whole government could process all of that to make good decisions. We are, as the source material puts it, hopelessly overburdened.
And that's where the market steps in. You can think of it as this giant filter. It takes all of that infinite, messy, overwhelming complexity and boils it down to something super simple, something we can all act on: prices and payments.
And that's the key. This intense focus, this obsession with just one thing, payments, is exactly what makes the market so useful to us. It gives us a clear signal to follow in a world that's just full of noise.
So, if the market's job is to filter complexity, how on earth does it actually do that? Well, the answer is kind of wild. It uses what you could call a strategy of ignorance. And get this, it's not a bug, it's a core feature.
Now, the key concept here is a fancy word, autopoiesis. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. An autopoietic system, like the market, is basically self-creating, and to do its job well, it has to be operationally closed. All that means is it only pays attention to its own internal stuff. And this is the heart of the strategy. To be really, really good at its one job, processing payments, the market has to put on blinders. It has to strategically ignore pretty much everything else. It tunes out all the noise from other systems just to keep its own signal crystal clear.
Think of it like this. Each of these systems speaks a totally different language. The market, it only understands payments or no payments. It's completely deaf when the legal system talks about lawful or unlawful. And it's blind when the ecological system is screaming about regeneration or decay.
And you can see why this ignorance is just so crucial. I mean, imagine if for every single transaction, the market had to translate ecological health or social justice into the language of payments. It would get bogged down, totally overstrained, and the whole thing would just break. So we have this system that's incredibly useful because it's ignorant. But, and this is the big but, that leads us straight to the dangerous downside. This fundamental disconnect from reality, what the source material calls autopoietic decoupling.
It's like the market has two faces. In the short term, its single-minded focus makes it a stable, predictable tool for all of us. But in the long term, that exact same focus makes it completely insensitive to whether the ground beneath its feet, the society and environment it needs, is crumbling away. This quote from the source material, wow, it just captures the chilling nature of the paradox perfectly. The market can be humming along, looking like it's functioning perfectly by its own rules, while at the exact same time, it's destroying the clean air, the stable society, all the things it absolutely needs to exist in the first place. So the result of this decoupling is a system that just can't hear anything that doesn't have a price tag. It becomes unresponsive to basic human needs, it ignores critical warnings from the environment, and it ends up damaging the very foundations that hold it up. Okay, so this all sounds pretty grim, I know, but understanding the problem is always the first step. And it turns out, the way we even see this problem in the first place depends entirely on the mental model we're using. For a long, long time, the mean way people thought about this was the equilibrium model. It pictures the market as this beautiful, self-correcting machine, like a force of nature. But that model basically hides the problem. The autopoiesis model we've been using does the exact opposite. It shines a big spotlight on the market's dependence on its environment and forces us to look at the trade-off. In fact, you could say the old model isn't just wrong. It's a kind of non-complex mask. It's a convenient story that lets the market off the hook, that reframes a dangerous kind of ignorance as a strength.
And this is where there's a glimmer of hope. Shifting our thinking to this new model doesn't magically make the problem go away. The trade-off is real. But for the first time, this framework gives us the right tools to actually see the problem, to name it, and to start thinking about how we might manage it.
And that's where we'll leave it. If a useful market is, by its very nature, a dangerously ignorant one, then just telling it to be more ethical or care about the planet is never going to work. That's a language it literally can't understand. So the real challenge isn't about trying to invent some perfect system. It's about how we as a society can get smarter about managing the dangerous side effects of this incredibly powerful tool we've built. What does that management look like? Now that's the question to ponder.